Hello, in this video I'd like to talk about 17 reasons that I want the biohybrid from Schaeffler. So the biohybrid is a four-wheeled electrical assist sort of bicycle, but it's a kind of pedal bicycle quadracycle. In this video I'm going to go over 17 reasons why I think I want one, and then just 3 reasons why I might be a bit concerned about whether that's going to happen. Okay, so let's get right into it. Reason 1 then, safety. So this appears good because it's got almost like an SUV style ride height, where the passenger is positioned is almost like an SUV. If you look at the photos from their kind of publicity, then you can see by comparing it to people walking and cars that the vehicle that they're testing is going past. It's quite good, it's quite a commanding view, and it looks quite safe. You're going to be able to kind of look and see around you and get a sense of what's going on, a bit like being on a bicycle, because you're almost as upright as a sort of traditional upright bicycle and an upright riding position, but you've got the benefit of being seated and you're in a more kind of car-like vehicle. So that seems really good. And there's also lights and wing mirrors. So not only can you be seen, but also you can see others, and that seems pretty good. Now, I'm comparing this personally. I've been looking at all sorts of alternatives to e-bikes and bicycles that are a bit more car-like, and things like the pod bike that is being developed in Norway. I'm not having a go at it. It seems like a really good thing, but that's very low and very velomobile-like, and that doesn't give you that kind of commanding visibility, and you're not as easy to be seen by the people. Reason number 2, reliability. Now, I've only noticed this in one of their videos by kind of freeze framing it, but the main pedal crank seems to be running like a carbon Gates belt drive, which I have one of those on the pedal cargo e-bike that I ride, and it's been great. It's very low maintenance, it's clean, it's quiet, and you know, it's not going to come off like a chain. Now, in a bicycle, a chain coming off is a nuisance. In something like this, a kind of four-wheel pedal assist sort of e-bike, yeah, that's going to be a real pain. So you want to minimize the sort of downtime and inconvenience and need for repairs and roadside fiddling. So if there's a belt drive, that looks really good. I'm not sure about the whole drive mechanism, but at least the part that you can see in the video looks to be a belt drive. And also other components, if you look at the kind of spinning CG version of it and some of the other footage, it looks like there's kind of conventional bicycle disc brakes on all four wheels, and you know, other kind of bicycle-like equipment like the handlebars and pedals and so on. So hopefully that's not too specialized, and it's going to be fairly reliable and fairly proven technology. Reason number 3 then, comfort. You've got suspension, from the look of it, on at least the front 2 wheels. I'm not sure about the back actually. If you watch some of the videos of it going over bumps, it seems to be the front mainly that is responding, but there might also be something on the back axle. There's a full seat, not a saddle. That's not always a great thing. Saddle can be good if you're riding for longer, but the seat looks pretty good. And it looks to be adjustable too. I might be imagining that, but it looks like it can slide back and forth a bit like a car seat. So you get the right pedaling position and feeling of comfort, and maybe there's a way to have a trade-off between you and your passenger in the back. That's me speculating, but it looks like that. It's not too upright, it's not too reclined. Seems like a good balance for comfort. Reason number 4 then, flexibility. It seems to be narrow enough and seems to have been designed to be narrow enough to be legal to use, you know, according to local regulations, on cycle lanes. So certainly there's a lot of those where I live here now in Denmark, and it would be a real boon to be able to ride something like this on the cycle lanes and then, you know, go off into the other roads where you need to. But it should still take up less space than a car, not be too annoying to other cyclists, I don't think, and maybe you could still park it in typical kind of bicycle areas, because it's not that much bigger than cargo bikes. It's certainly only as long as my cargo bike, and at the widest point of my cargo box on my cargo bike, they're probably more or less equivalent. So hopefully, even though it looks a bit different, it should be more or less the same kind of thing to park as a normal sort of cargo bike. It does have a reverse gear, apparently, an electric reverse gear for low-speed maneuvers. So even though it might not be usable in all the places you'd use a bicycle, particularly here where there's some of these gates that kind of close off some cycle lanes and you've got to sort of slalom through, it should be fairly close. All sort of subject to local regulations, obviously, but it should be fairly close. Reason number 5 then, visibility. There's a front windscreen, and a wiper has been fitted to sort of keep it clear. And there are fairings at the top of that front windscreen, and there are fairings at the back, at the rear for the passenger. So hopefully that should reduce the kind of wind in your face, which is not only, it can be nice at lower speeds, but it can be a bit of a nuisance. It can stop you from seeing, it can make your eyes water and so on. But unlike the kind of enclosed designs, again, like the pod bike I mentioned before, there shouldn't be any need for kind of forced airflow to stop these screens from misting up, because you have got the open sides, and I mean that doesn't, it means, you know, you've got some weather protection, not total cover, but I think that's a good trade-off to not have this problem of, you know, what to do with the airflow and misting up and moisture in the cabin, which any kind of enclosed design is going to have that challenge. There is a reversing camera as well, which is, I've mentioned, which is something that I've wanted on e-bikes. I've been wondering if I could plug something into my phone and have my phone at the front and be seeing what's behind, because even with a sort of wing mirror, a side mirror, you don't really get the same feeling of, you know, looking up at a rear view mirror in a car. And I come from driving EVs, from cars, and why not? Why not? It's such a simple thing. These sort of small cameras are so ubiquitous these days, and phones are so ubiquitous. Something where you've got a view out of the back, yeah, why not? And an additional safety point, and gives you good visibility. And also this kind of like seems to be transparent above the rider's head as well, which one of the things I do like about being on a bicycle compared to being in a car is you still get that kind of walking like feeling that you can look up, look at your surroundings and get that feeling that you're really immersed in nature, you know, you're really kind of involved in where you're going and feeling like you're in the outdoors. So it might give some of that, but at the same time some weather protection. So I like that. I like that feature. Reason number 6 then, range. So, you know, all e-bikes, I guess, technically have infinite range if you're prepared to sort of pedal them without any assist. Not sure how easy that's going to be with a vehicle like the biohybrid, but even so, what they've done here is it seems to be that they're going to offer a 1.2 kilowatt hour battery or an optional 2.4 kilowatt hour battery. So the quoted ranges, and I don't know at what level of assist and what riding conditions and so on, but quoted ranges are sort of 50 and 100 kilometers for those smaller and larger battery sizes respectively. Now that really, someone who comes from an EV, I'm aware of this, it puts you into kind of Renault Twizy territory, which was, you know, the commercial release of Renault's electric quadracycle, where there that had a 50 to 90 kilometer quoted range for a much bigger 6.1 kilowatt hour battery. But of course the biohybrid, firstly you're pedaling, you're assisting it, but the biohybrid without a rider is 100 kilograms, whereas the Twizy is 474 kilograms according to Renault's website. So, you know, the biohybrid's lighter, has a smaller battery, but still gets kind of equivalent range of something like a Twizy. So, you know, should be quite usable on that basis, particularly if you've got the larger battery. But yet you can still ride it on bicycle lanes, and you don't need a, you know, insurance and a driving license and all that hassle and expense. Reason number 7 then, maintenance should be okay. So it might not be as simple as a normal bicycle, and I don't like doing that. Cleaning is about as much as I can handle. I don't like to fiddle with brakes and chains and all those kind of things, which is why I'm looking for kind of lower maintenance options. But at the same time, there are fairly familiar bicycle parts on this biohybrid, it seems. It's not all completely bespoke and re-engineered and so on. So that should make maintenance and servicing a bit easier. It shouldn't be too much of a headache, I hope. Reason number 8 then is storage of cargo. So it's not quite there with the car. You know, I'm very interested in looking for something between bicycle and a car. That's my real interest right now. But I think it's up there with cargo bikes, like my cargo e-bike, the Riese and Muller Packster 60 that I ride at the moment. And obviously a lot more than a standard bicycle, because there's places you can put things and so on around where you're riding, and then there's storage under the rear seat, as shown in one of the videos that they've released, and there's a shelf on the back of the passenger version where you can get like a kind of locking cargo box, I think, and maybe other things. And of course there's kind of full cargo bed and cargo box variants apparently coming as well. Reason number 9 then, passengers, the ability to carry passengers. So the version I'm most interested in is the passenger version, and apparently there's going to be some kind of seat belt or child seat compatibility thought about, again fitting with whatever local regulations there are. And it seems like the makers have been engaging with the authorities about these kind of issues. But I should be able to carry my young son or my slightly older daughter or my partner in the back as well. So that's quite handy. It's still not like a 4-seater, 5-seater vehicle, but it's kind of up there with a cargo bike, and it's, you know, more flexibility with passengers than a traditional bicycle. Reason number 10 then, security. So one of the things that I don't like about normal bicycles, even a fairly heavier one like my cargo e-bike, is technically someone can still sort of pick it up and put it in the back of a van, or just pick it up and ride off with it, or just pick it up and roll it off in some instances, depending on how it's locked and secured and whether you have an alarm lock and so on. There seems to be on the biohybrid that they've thought about this. They're actually trying to enhance the kind of feeling of security and the reality of the security of it, a bit like more like having a car where it's locked and, you know, someone's going to smash things to get in, and quite sort of invasive and intrusive, whereas a bicycle you can be a bit more discreet and steal them perhaps. So there seems to be some kind of digital locking mechanism. There's a video shown of a rider just locking it and then going out off a screen, and a sort of like lifting or tilting alarm. And there's app support, so the vehicle can be monitored and maybe tracked remotely as well. And also, if it is 100 kilograms without a rider, it's not going to be as easy to kind of, you know, pick it up, lift it, get it into the back of a van, even with a group of thieves. So yeah, hopefully security will be a bit closer to sort of car-like security than typical kind of bicycle security. Reason number 11 then, the apparent power. So I believe it says it's got 2 electric motors, both capped at the kind of 250 watt sort of nominal output regulation that we have here in Europe for this class of kind of e-bikes. I can't tell really from the videos where the motors are. They might be on the rear axle, although I can't really see 2 of them there, so maybe there's some sort of front and back combination. I don't really know. But the power seems to provide for quite gentle pedaling. If you actually look at the cadence, the sort of pedal speed of the people riding the test versions in the videos, they're not really sort of going at it. I mean, they're on the flat, but still it looks to be quite comfortable, and they're still going at a reasonable speed. It's obviously still capped at 25 kilometers an hour because of the regulations in Europe. And apparently there's some sort of regen available too, and continuously variable gears. I don't know how that will work out, whether that's some sort of auto system or you manually adjust it. I'll be really fascinated to see how the regen system works out, whether that takes the wear off the brakes. That's been my biggest headache with having bicycles so far, e-bikes that are heavier bikes that need fairly heavy-duty brakes to stop them, is, you know, replacing the pads, cleaning the pads, checking the calipers, all those kind of things. I don't want that kind of hassle, and anything that can reduce the wear on those brakes and the maintenance on those brakes, if the regen is able to do that on this kind of bicycle, then great, I'm all for that. Reason number 12 then, handling. So the geometry of the design seems quite promising. It's got 4 wheels, so it shouldn't tip under cornering, and it should feel fairly secure to handle. But if you look where they've placed the wheels, is right at the edges of the vehicle. There are no overhangs here, which is known to be, you know, something that improves handling. And it's not like the kind of Velo Armadillo where, which I've actually seen here in Aarhus, Denmark, your feet are sort of dangling out the front, and then they put a barrier there to sort of protect them, or you know, give a feeling of protection. And I think it's an interesting design how they've managed to kind of, you know, move the rider in, have them somewhat upright, somewhat reclined and comfortable, but then keep the rider within the boundaries of where the wheels are for kind of handling and just the look of it and the geometry of it. And I think that looks quite promising, and hopefully the handling's pretty good. Reason number 13, the looks as a result of the design. So I think the results are pretty good here. It's a bit of a difficult concept to pull off, a kind of pedal-assisted electric quadricycle with passenger capacity or cargo beds or cargo boxes, but it doesn't look too outlandish, and it doesn't look too extrovert or like weird. And now I'm not bashing other designs I've seen, because I think there's a lot of exciting innovation in this space between bicycles and cars with, you know, electric supported, electric assisted, electrified mobility of different kinds. I don't want to have a go at them too much, but if you compare the biohybrid to something like the Quadracycle that I've seen on YouTube shown from the UK, the biohybrid looks more sort of balanced, modern still, but, you know, attractive, and there's just something about the geometry of it, and it's not going to sort of turn heads for the wrong reasons of looking awkward or weird, or, you know, there's something a bit off about it. Reason number 14 then, familiarity of the design I think is important and quite clever here too. So the cockpit area has quite conventionally styled handlebars, at least in the version that they're showing at the moment, and the pedals, you know, you can see those going around. And I think that's quite useful, that it doesn't look something too different that you might hopefully not get pulled over by the police and they say, you know, what kind of vehicle is this? Why are you riding it on a bicycle lane? Does it fit with our regulations, and so on and so forth? Because you can still see that kind of bicycle roots to it, which I think, again, it also gives familiarity if people want to try it or see what it is, you know, because it's kind of conventional handlebars, pedals and so on in the sort of familiar-ish positions. And I think that's pretty good, you know, and again, it's that clear bicycle roots of it, and then keeping within the conventions of that allows it to fit to the regulations, that you don't need vehicle insurance and you don't need a driver's license. So I think that's very clever to sort of do that, keep that familiarity, but at the same time, it's something different. It's a kind of new concept. So I like that. Durability as well, reason 15, has kind of been brought into the design as well. Robert Llewellyn's Fully Charged, the version they showed there a few years ago, was a bit different. It's kind of somewhat recognizable, the overall design of it, but there's a lot of tweaks that seem to have happened in those few years. And one of them is that the drivetrain area seems to have been covered in for, I guess, weather and wear protection. And also the front lower area is enclosed, maybe to keep the passenger dry and just to give it an overall more kind of like a protected feel to it. And that should keep it sort of, you know, durable over time. And I think there's a lot of thoughtfulness gone into kind of which bits to enclose, which bits to keep open for access or just the look of it. I like that. It seems to have been quite thoughtfully done. Reason number 16 then, feasibility. Seems to be good. So the Schaeffler Group behind it seems to have the resources not only to do the R&D, but also to bring this kind of thing to market. Schaeffler is this big, you know, has a lineage of automotive, aerospace, industry tech. They've been working on electric drive systems for years now, and, you know, overall the strategy seems to be for a sort of, you know, incremental, considered market rollout, starting in Germany, where they know the regulatory environment, and that maintenance schedules and so on and service partners can be in place. That's a bit sad for someone like me who's in nearby Denmark, because it may affect when I can get the vehicle, but I like the fact that they're rolling it out in a way that hopefully should be feasible and that they get market uptake and they don't try and go too big and it crashes early and then nobody gets to get one. Reason number 17 then, this is a bit speculative, this one, but the touring potential of the biohybrid. So if you look at the roof above the passenger, the first thing that popped out at me, having seen a few people do endurance rides and other things on e-bikes in various things on YouTube, is the possibility of putting solar panels up there. This could be for regular use to kind of recharge the battery, because we're only talking about 1.2 kilowatt hours or 2.4 kilowatt hours, not the huge batteries like my old IONIQ had a 28 kilowatt hour battery, the new one has a 38 kilowatt hour. You can't really recharge that from solar in a short amount of time that would enable kind of continuous touring with it. Maybe, you know, given maybe some of the other variants of the biohybrid, you could store bigger panels, use them, stop and charge when you're camping somewhere or something. There seems to be fairly good scope here for some sort of touring potential of it. Now I'd just like to mention 3 quick concerns that I have to kind of balance off some of these reasons. The first one then, price. I am quite concerned that they're going to be able to bring this to market as something that I can afford, or that seems, you know, a good proposition for what it actually is. If it's going to fit in that space between a bicycle and a car, the pricing has to kind of reflect that mid-range kind of reality of it for me. So I currently ride a Riese and Muller Packster 60, which is not a cheap bike in its own right, but if I wanted to upgrade that to the one that has full suspension and 3 seats and other kind of features, I'd be looking at 7,000–8,000 euros, possibly more with some options. And then if you go back to the Drycycle from the UK that I mentioned earlier, they're asking, I think, a retail price of that of around about £15,000 sterling. Is it going to come at a price that not only I can afford, but that looks reasonable for what it is? Concern number 2 then, the weight. So 100 kilograms is more than I think, say, the sort of 35–40 kilograms of my current cargo e-bike. I am a little bit concerned how easy it'll be to move it around. Sometimes with the bicycle you need to kind of lift it up and turn it completely on its axis. Will it be sort of, you know, handleable at that kind of weight? I'm not sure. Concern number 3 then is storing it. Where am I going to park it at home? Where am I going to park it at work? So at home I have a shed currently which locks, which my e-bikes are in. It doesn't look like I'd be able to fit one of these biohybrids in, even though it's only the same length as my current bike. I don't think it would have the kind of turning circle or the kind of liftability to get it into there. So I'm looking at parking it outside. So then it's, does it need a rain cover, extra security considerations, you know, weatherproofing? And at work, you know, will there be designated spaces to park it? I understand that biohybrid actually have been engaging, possibly in Germany, with the authorities there and following developments around signage and space and specifications for cargo bikes as to where they can be used, and special designated parking areas and these kind of things, and you know, considerations that realize that there's going to be more kind of cargo bikes, cargo e-bikes and things in the world and in cities. So hopefully there's something can be worked out here, but that remains a concern. That's my kind of wrap up then of the 17 reasons why I want a biohybrid, and 3 concerns I have about that maybe, you know, it's not going to be possible, there's going to be some issues with it. Separate from that, if you've been following my zero tailpipe videos, I'm still working on kind of going out riding and checking filming arrangements for different rides and seeing if I'll do other rides and film them and put them on YouTube in the future. I think I'll rethink the sound. The feedback on the sound wasn't so good on the previous video I did of riding around the lake, but I think there's ways of either making that sound a bit more like it sounds to my ears through a little bit of treatment or recording and building it up almost in an ADR style, or just not having sound and adding some other kind of music or ambience or something to it like that, because there's still some really lovely routes I'd like to share, but I want to do it in a nice, pleasant way that it's comfortable and relaxing and enjoyable to watch. So we'll see how that goes. So that's all for this video for now. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Check out the links to Schaeffler's biohybrid channel and their website that'll be in the description. Yep, thanks again for watching, and bye for now.